Yes.
All right. So I've got the agenda up and us. And we have one person in Zoom land.
Oh, really? Your husband?
No, he's upstairs at a different meeting.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Soon, because I didn't send this out to anybody.
I sent it to some people.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Great. Okay.
I assume you can hear me,
Rather than just magic.
and you'll tell me if you can. All right. So our agenda: approval of minutes from the previous meeting, discussion of agriculture in Framingham, presentation by Transition Framingham Community Gardens Working Group, committee admin, other issues, additional discussion, and then adjournment. So, did you send out the meetings minutes from the last meeting?
Yeah, it was a week ago, I think. A week or two, maybe. I did.
Did anybody have any problems with them?
We're very trusting.
Okay.
All right. So, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Great. Oh wait, vote. Aye. Siobhan.
Aye.
Doug.
Aye.
Great.
Yes. Yep.
All right. So then a discussion of agriculture in Framingham. So on Friday, we met with the mayor, talk about his vision and what. And we'll introduce ourselves, talk about his vision and what he would like to see happening. And I think we kind of spent most of the time just talking about us, talking about what we'd like to see happening.
Yeah.
Talking about little things we know are happening. We did bring up like keeping of animals paperwork and the process for getting approved for the license and or for bringing animals to like Earth Day for one rabbit was
Right.
ridiculous.
Wasn't there was a controversy about the Board of Health passing some initiative without asking us, and I'm trying to remember what it was. What was it? Did you ask him about that?
No,
I did bring up that there is a new law. Well, I know they've been changing the paperwork.
Yeah.
So like the licensure paperwork is due in May now instead of December.
Yeah.
But they're not telling people. And I think in general the keeping of animals stuff, they didn't get any feedback from like the agricultural committee as far as I can tell. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they went ahead and made all these rules
Right.
based on personal opinion, not necessarily fact, because like the Board of Health just approved a variance for somebody with a rooster, with an unexpected rooster. And this guy did his homework. He went to all of his neighbors, made sure that everybody's okay with it, brought them all the like paperwork and proof that, you know, roosters really aren't that loud. They're not as bad as you think they are. And he got it passed. So I feel like that's something we should broach with them, like how to make this a little bit easier and less prohibitive for residents, because it's, you have to notify your abutters within 150 feet. So for like me, that was 7 people. That included a person on Edgell Road, which is the next street over, the city of Framingham DPW, who didn't know what to do with it, a person who rented out the next door property to the city for 100 years. Like, most people did not care, had nothing to say about it.
Well, that's partially the issue, and maybe because I don't know if confront is the right word, but dealing with the lack of knowledge. That's why this is good to sort of rekindle some of the information, just process as much as anything else, because Real Farm doesn't have to go through a lot of this stuff anyway because of right to farm. So, and they sort of know that and stay away from it. But I was incensed, frankly, when I saw that. I couldn't remember the exact focus of it. But for them to have the hubris, if that's what it is, or just the forgetful, or they just, you know, didn't think anybody cared, to not ask the body that seems to be becoming much more active. I mean, they know it exists. I thought it was poorly done. Right?
Yeah. And it seems like they're using a template that a lot of cities and towns in Massachusetts use, and they just kind of like adjusted it to fit their needs. But from what I was told when I first did the application and had the inspectors come over and animal control come over and like look at my property, they said that everything was kind of designed to make it as not as restrictive as possible, but to avoid any potential problems.
Maybe as difficult as possible.
Yeah, so it's
They
over.
don't wanna
Right.
bother.
It's a lot of work. It's very overwhelming. When I started doing it, I contacted the Board of Health like 20, 30 times asking for
And they don't
clarification.
know because there's no precedent, so.
But the mayor was supportive of us
Oh.
looking into this.
Yes.
He said we should absolutely go, this is our lane, and we should absolutely go and talk to them. And suggested we talk to Alex DiPaolo.
Yeah,
So,
because we also were thinking like the Board of Health has enough stuff on their plates.
Yeah.
They're also doing the inspections, so they come and decide, look at your property, look at your coop, look at whatever you got to see if it's okay. But it doesn't. To me, it didn't seem like they were even following the requirements. Making like they weren't measuring anything. Like I know my coops are more than big enough, but if you see like little Tractor Supply coops, those you can't put chickens in those, but people do it.
But we should get to the bottom of Alex and the people that are working there are overwhelmed. There aren't enough people there in the first
Right.
place. So why even is there there must be a bylaw somewhere. And again, because I don't really have to, although I did run into some chicken stuff this spring, but it was okay because the avian flu was an issue when there are a lot of chickens and I have ducks and stuff. So that was appropriate. It was okay. I got a little messy for a while because some of the participants didn't really know what they were talking about, didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
They took the state guys to kind of straighten it out. And so in this circumstance, how it got to be this difficult, I think is a question we ought to ask.
It is a good
You
question.
know, why was all of this stuff, why was it kindled in the first place?
so I think our first step is just to make contact with Alex.
Yeah.
Set something
Yeah.
up with her to introduce us that we're kind of rebooting this group and this is something that we've got questions about. And maybe if we do our homework ahead of time, then we can propose something to them. I would think coming with something that
Right.
we've already thought about it, so some suggestions of what would make this, what we'd like to see happen to
Yeah.
it.
Make it a little bit easier, and a little
Figure
bit
out who,
friendlier.
if they've got somebody that's kind of, well, they drew the short straw or whatever, but they're responsible
There's
for
one of
this
the
stuff.
guys that's there, is it Dominic, I think, or?
I haven't
I don't
met
I
him.
don't know.
The first 2 times around, I worked with Camille, and then she left. And the last time, it was Michael Mendez. They've got some new staff, but I mean, they're not trained
No.
to do. They don't know anything about livestock, so like
Right.
So
maybe that's something we could take off their hands. Like I think that sounds like fun, going and seeing other people's setups and
Right.
seeing what other people
Yeah,
are doing.
no, I think we first make contact with
And I
Alex,
think it's
tell
less,
her what our
like,
concerns
intimidating.
are, and go through a process to kind of make some suggestions of how this process could be better and the impact on other people. Then I think that'll work. But the mayor was supportive of us talking to them, and he was willing to make those contacts as well, or have Kezia help us
With that, yeah.
do that.
Well, he was
Um,
very interested in, he's interested in agriculture, to be
Yes.
sure, and interested, like the farmer's market
Yeah.
has taken on a new life, and this, because he thinks that it's an important part of this, Framingham and its diversity.
Right, and culture of Framingham. So he was good with making connections, and he was he listened to us that we lost our admin person, and they're restructuring, and he assures us that we'll get a new admin person. That it was an important thing from his point of view too. So
Are there resources online to read about these things for just the
The-
general public? to learn?
On the Framingham City webpage, there is a page for the agriculture committee. There's a couple of links for stuff, but it's not updated, and it hasn't been updated since the fall, I think. But we're working on getting access to that so we can update it, and then getting an email account through the city so we can set up a Facebook page, and then we can live stream our meetings and
Yeah, great.
so
get knowledge out there. The mayor also suggested having a table at the farmers market, which now that the time has changed is like, well, I could actually do that because it's not during school.
well, and I think we need to get what we're going to say. What we want, information we
Right.
want to present in that type of venue, or even a flyer, or on a website, or so get ourselves together with what our message is as part
So
of it
Linda,
too.
when are you going to start doing that?
Yeah, well, I've got pages, but it's something for everybody to do, because we've all got a different perspective to figure out what parts of all of this agriculture interests each of us. Who we like to follow. This is more at the end, but city people, city groups that we'd like to follow, or other things that are happening in other towns or other groups that are related to food and agriculture. So the mayor's meeting was good. So I also met with Nomi Sofer from Stearns Farm, both voted for Stearns Farm. So we had a short discussion that they're so a nonprofit on a couple of acres. The land's owned by Sudbury Valley trustees. They don't really have a lot of city contact, except for
Trying
permits.
to get her to join this group, but she doesn't live in Framingham,
Oh.
Yeah, and I think she's probably got enough on her plate
so. Yeah, she
with,
does.
with
I
that
wanted
too.
her to
but-
come, I wanted her to be a part. I'm doing a farmer's market at Eastleigh on Sundays, and I tried to get her to come to that. And they have everything that is available to grow sold, spoken for, so they're
Right.
ready to do it.
Because it's a CSA, they can't
Yeah.
manage farmers market stuff at the same time. She did mention that they would like to be more involved in the community. They're concerned, South Side issues as well. But they've only got so much resource.
Right.
They used to, some kind of a deal with SMOC, and maybe there was some funding like in 2017 where whoever had the funding bought like 10 shares. And then it went to SMOC, but SMOC could come and pick it up. So their issues are distribution, transportation.
Which is the same issues that
And-
the community food assessment found for Framingham in general.
Right.
There's food, they just can't get it to anybody.
Right, that's one of the pieces to it. And for them, it's fundraising and grants, and that's it. So if there was some type of a grant that was going through with other groups to be able to fund food and that sort, they would like to be part of that.
One of the things that I think will become apparent with the new planning director, who will be the person that supplies the Sean replacement,
Right,
is that he's known in the state as being one of the best grant writers. And he
Ah.
knows where all the money is.
oh,
So he'd
excellent.
be a good person to invite or to
Yeah.
reach out to as well, because he's reached out to me already about the farm issues, so
Oh,
I know
good.
he's interested.
Yeah, I let him get his
Yeah.
people sort us and let him get us our person, and then that'll take some things off of my plate. So Stearns, and then yesterday I was listening in on the Metro West Food Collaboration meeting. So this is essentially Framingham, Natick, Ashland, and Hudson. And there's, I don't know how many people, but it's the Y, and it's SMOC, and it's Daniel's Table, and it's the health department, and so all kinds of people from all of these towns, and looking to solve problems with a food system. So they're working on, let's see, they work on policy things. So universal school meals. So during the pandemic, all the kids got lunch, or I don't know how much, but got meals from the school system, and it didn't matter what the income was. It was everybody. I think that's being not renewed federally, but they're looking to get it renewed for Massachusetts. So then it's just everybody's got lunch, and there's no discussion about what income and anything else. They're working on the summer meals access, which Framingham Public Schools and the Y are really leading that whole thing for the metro area. A Common App for social services, so that once you get into whether it's housing or finance or food or whatever the issue is, you've got one place that you're putting in all your information, and that gets you in the door for all these other things without having to find 12 different places for 12 different things. They work with the looking to get HIP, which is if you're a SNAP and WIC, I guess, food service. HIP is allowing you to purchase fresh vegetables at farmers markets and those sorts of things. So they're working, apparently it was a 9-month thing, and they're looking to get that year round. They work on grants, and they're working on planning a legislator summit to draw in legislators that are in Metro West to tell them here's what the deal is with food and food security and food access and all the issues. So they've got 3 working groups. One is food access, which is food recovery, emergency plans so we have a secure food system, and supporting farmers and other producers in community gardens. So I thought that was something that might work for us. Food equity and justice, it's food policy related to food insecurity, access to the transportation, which they found was a major issue. They were kind of working on mapping food access points and finding out where the gaps are and finding solutions for those issues. and looking at other retail distribution models that overcome that transportation issue. So like you were talking mobile food trucks.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else. Then they have a community engagement where they're looking at healthy eating education, food system engagement, entrepreneurship, so people getting into the agriculture business, and youth development and job skills and employment opportunities. So it really, they're trying to pull together all the pieces and solve problems. So that was an interesting meeting too. So I will continue to follow them to see what their big group meets. I guess they started in October. This is their spring meeting. They're talking about the next one in the fall. But those working groups are more active on a, I don't know if it's, maybe it's a monthly basis. And that's where the action happens. So I'll follow along with those two.
Good report.
Yeah, no, it was a really interesting meeting and very encouraging seeing how many people are out there that are passionate about the food systems and all the different pieces of it and trying to pull it all together and really developing a community to solve
It's
problems.
like a long road of things in government. There's no real direction. There's no real. Like this one's doing that. Nobody knows over here.
Right,
what
and
they're doing.
there are some very interesting people. And for contacts for the South Side, there was a woman, Margie Rosario. So there's Voices of the Community, which is through the health department. And she's grew up on the South Side. And her project has been talking to people all over the place. She's talked to hundreds of people and just their stories and whether it's food access or anything else, where they come from, what they're interested in, what's going on.
That's cool.
So I want to try and find her because she may be a point that knows either a South Side representative for this group or figuring out, what we say we want to do something on the South Side, but what does the South Side say that they really want or need? We don't need to push things on them. We need
Right.
to answer whatever their issues are, or at least respond to those things, whether it's keeping animals or food or gardens or food trucks or markets and stuff. So I thought that was interesting. Farmers markets.
Farmers markets.
Unless anybody else has anybody in the community that they've talked to that wants to share something.
Not since I talked to you guys on Sunday.
Okay, it's kind of like the, right, three of us met on Sunday to chat.
Today's Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah. Farmers markets are going ahead. The mayor
Farmers markets.
seems to kind of
Yeah.
have it pulled together. Sharon, who's leaving us. Is that the right?
Susan.
Susan Nichols.
excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but she seemed to say
Well,
that it
Bill
was kind of
Sells is
together.
the one who
Right, he's
she found to do he does the Metro Fest and
yeah
is an organizer.
this weekend.
That's
Yeah.
what he does. He's an organizer. So
Yep.
he's doing that. And
Yep.
I actually am doing some stuff for me for the Sunday thing. It's early. Decided that I wanted to start it because I wanted to get it organized. There really isn't there's no produce around for a couple of weeks yet.
Oh,
Unless
sure.
you find some strawberries, and the strawberries will all get picked clean 5 minutes after Tommy says he's got his strawberries are ready. They'll all be gone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So and this year they're harder to find for some reason. I don't know. Maybe because there's not enough bees.
Maybe not. So
Yeah.
public participant is just asking if we can get a downtown or south side farmers market, which, I mean,
I'll
think
give you
we're on the same page.
background. It was tried once, to the person who's asking, it was tried at the Common downtown, and it was an unabashed failure.
I remember
Mostly-
that. Yeah.
Mostly because the vagrants, drug dealing that was going on, they literally, the days that they had it, would buy 6 cases of beer and give it to the people who were there to get them out of
Wow.
to get them away from there. But there was nobody wants to go. I think now it's a little better because I was at a meeting today of the Business Association. The new planning director was explaining what's going on downtown and those other things. In 3-4 years, they're not going to recognize downtown.
Oh, it's already.
Already, you don't
Yeah,
recognize downtown.
they've done a
Right,
lot.
Yeah.
I was away for
But
a
this
couple of
is-
years, and it
Yeah,
really.
this is
come along
really
already.
Yeah.
big time stuff that they're talking about doing, and so maybe there'll be a place. Somebody suggested when I was trying to figure out when we tried to, because I got involved, and the mayor asked me if I would help, and I did what I could. We looked at Cushing for a Southside venue. We looked at Keefe Tech. We we looked at some private things, but if the city's sponsoring, it can't be on private
Right.
property. And we looked at Bowditch, but when, once, if you're doing it at Bowditch, once the football season starts, then you can't do it at Bowditch. So it pretty much went back to, and the suggestion was made that we do it on Friday, and that, didn't, actually, that was my idea. I thought, let's do the thing before the concerts and have everybody there. When they come in, we'll keep the food suppliers there, so people, when they come into the concert, and the parks be closed. So went back to Thursday, but moved it to later in the day because it seems that parking obviously is an issue there, but the traffic that would be generated at that time of day from 3 to 7, I think is much more. I agreed with them. Tommy didn't. Having it from mid-afternoon to early evening, because I do think you're going to get people going home and they want to stop and get some stuff, especially when the product is fresh.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
We're gonna keep reaching out though to other models that are in the area to try and
Yeah.
figure some
See
of
what we can
that
figure
out.
out.
In terms of
On
more people or having downtown, you mean?
the downtown,
Something
south
downtown.
side,
Yeah.
even if it's not right downtown,
Right.
maybe it's further.
Like that
Further out.
common, I remember when that farmer's market was down there because I lived at the Denison when it was down there, and I thought even just walking over there, like I wasn't comfortable with it, and that was several years ago. Parking was ridiculous, and when I got there, it was small, and it didn't seem like there was much going on. But I think in a different location, more parking, more advertisement.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
There's
finding
more
the
potential.
right location. Really.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Yeah.
Thinking about that, by where Jack's Abbey is in Springdale, there's a big
Mm.
parking lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, those kind of places where they have, if they have a day closed, they're closed.
It would be great, except those are not city-owned places.
Yeah.
And that's why as long as the city runs it, the city this year decided it wanted to spruce it up a little bit, so that's why the mayor took it over. And but the focus, when we were looking around for places,
So as the city gets their feet wet with taking this on and figures out how they're going to manage it in the future,
yeah,
that'll segue into us, expanding that, and it becomes maybe part of the rest of the food system here, whether it's community gardens, farmers markets, other farms, fit it into that process. So there's
yeah, I'll tell you, there were so many people that came last Sunday, and we didn't have really any projects at all. We had a couple of vendors. I think there were 3 or 4 vendors who had stuff that had nothing to do with agriculture that they wanted to be a part of it.
It was a good day, good turnout.
Did you show?
No.
Yeah, it was.
Busy.
It was a great turnout. Yeah. And
Great.
what I like about it, frankly, and why I do it is as much as anything else to have the kids, families bring their children so that they learn about the animals, they can touch. And I'll go over, this little 4-year-old girl is over there and she doesn't know if she can touch the cow or not. So I went over and I said, that cow wants to touch you. She wants to, and so I give her a piece of bread. And she sticks it in the face of the cow. The cow sticks its tongue out.
oh,
And the kids go screaming, and then that's what I want. That's what I want to accomplish. I want to have kids afraid of stuff, like
Right.
that and it's amazing how, and even the time since I grew up over there, how people just don't know anything about animals, food, the system. I drive into the barn driving a tractor, and the kids are all screaming, go running away, and put their heads out of their ears. Because
Right.
It's big. It's scary, and that's not a good thing to have, in my opinion. So, but we'll have, I'm sure, a good crowd. Everybody wants to know when we're actually going to have produce, and it's actually finding people. Tommy probably will participate, but I'd like to get a couple of more who are doing the research. The Ashland market is really good, and the Natick market is really good. And the reason I decided to do it on Sunday is because there really aren't any other markets around on Sunday. So I figured we could probably attract some of the people we've tried little bits and pieces, like there's a bakery lady who was there, I think the weekend that we opened up this year, and she was fabulous and sold out of thousands of dollars worth of stuff that she had. She doesn't use sugar, she doesn't use gluten, and you taste the stuff.
I think I need her card.
Yeah.
I've got some friends that
Well, that's it.
their food
As
allergies
soon
are
as she comes,
insane.
she is going to participate in the farmers market probably not every week.
I think anything that's getting people to go to a farmer's market.
Yeah.
Whatever day, time it's convenient for them is progress in connecting the people to the land and to the food.
Yep.
So it's all good that we don't need to be competitive about it, we just need to have
No.
all of
Work
them be
together.
successful.
Everybody
Yeah.
working together.
Yeah. This is our farmer's market update.
The next is presentation by Transition Framingham. They're not.
I'll be here eventually.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can go on to other things.
Okay, so we want to talk about meeting schedule and logistics.
Yeah. So I don't know how we like being in person. I don't know how we like the
I
library.
think it's great. Do we have to come here? It's the only
No.
place-
This is the only
but-
place we can get for tonight.
Right. I was working with the city, and it's like, yep, Tuesdays and Thursdays would be great for you guys. It's like, okay, we can't do Tuesdays and Thursdays. Mondays and Wednesdays they have taken up with all kinds of other things, and so for a room in Memorial Hall. So that's kind of why I ended up here, because it was a public space, and
Yeah.
figured out how to do hybrid, so I appreciate that. So we can be someplace else, we just have to figure out where that is. And they had,
I'm flexible. My evenings, my teacher, so I can do
yeah, I think we got down
whatever
to,
night.
we kind of got down to Wednesdays was the day to do it. I don't know that it matters which Wednesday it is, but
Not for me.
if we're gonna stick with Wednesdays, then I'll continue to work with the city and see if there's, what other options there are. Do we not like here?
It's okay. It's quiet.
It's fine.
Okay, and there aren't that many of us at this point. So.
Yeah.
We can do this, like, we can make a application for this area, it's like 3 months at a time. They won't say every Wednesday, or, the first Wednesday or the second Wednesday for all year, but they'll do like 3 months at a time, so there's,
That's a good place to
Okay.
start.
so I'll redo the application for here for July, August, September on the, what are we, first Wednesday? So this is the second Wednesday.
Does not matter to me.
Wednesdays in the summertime are fine with me.
Okay,
I'm just double checking because it's on the 13th.
If the weather's good, I might come in covered with hay from the hay field,
we'll sit you over there so we don't sneeze, but,
Yeah.
okay, so
The second Wednesday or the first Wednesday?
the next one coming up would be the 6th of July or the 13th of July, if we're gonna continue on a monthly schedule.
and off the 6th of July is only 3 weeks away.
Moving fast.
I guess the 13th.
That's fine. We can do that. Okay, so next meeting on the 13th of July. Okay, that's all right.
So, all
It
right.
happens.
So we could do
Um,
the 6th.
Does the 6th help you or no? It doesn't
Okay,
matter.
so it
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Okay. So 13th, and we'll do the best we can. Okay, well, until we get the garden people showing up. I think we
Vision.
need to work on that kind of vision and I know what my interests are and things that I'm following, but for anybody else, I think we need to come up with something, what the ag, when they come up to us at a booth and they say, okay, what do you guys do? I didn't know you guys existed. That's kind of the question we need to be able to answer. So we don't have to do it all here, but to get it, so work on it maybe for the next time, or
Do you
send something out
remember
in
that
email, or,
Excel doc that Shane had started for working groups? I've got it.
yeah. Although it's in an awful unprintable form.
Are you having a table on Saturday?
Is that what you're,
Are you having a table on
No, I'm going to the bee field day in Amherst because I want to learn more, and
is that,
it's a great way to do it.
I mean, it would print it out kind of big, so it's on multiple pages and multiple sides. Is that the part you're talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
because that's like this right here is like a whole bunch of different working groups depending on what people wanted to work on.
Okay.
I've got it on my computer, so I know what it says. I can just figure out where I put it.
This kind of shopping list. starter.
It was kind of like a brain dump of
Yeah.
everything we could think of that we were interested in, and then we started organizing it into like short-term goals, long-term goals, links for reference materials, grants.
Uh-huh. Can I take pictures?
Sure.
Oh yeah, I can
Or
email
she
it
can
to
send you
you.
a document, better than taking pictures of that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mess, yeah.
Okay.
Printing wise, it's kind of a mess. But it got the information together, so I could look at it on paper. I'm on that half digital, half paper thing.
I'll wait for you to email it.
Oh my god, I think I deleted the folder. No. Yes, I found it.
Siobhan, do you have other things that you're particular interests with this group that you're interested in working on or seeing happen or
I'm just waiting to see how the group forms and then I'll see what I want to get involved with.
okay?
Yeah, the different sections on here were farms, contacts, goals and objectives, website ideas, community gardens, resources for. Doesn't say the rest of it. And then like etc.
Okay.
What would be a, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No.
In some way, shape, or form, it would be nice to connect with the school department.
Yes, that's on the
and
list too.
have a program. I remember as a kid at Lincoln Junior High School, it wasn't about agriculture because there was much more known about it in town at the time. But there was a drug officer who came and brought in different types of marijuana and other drugs. And I thought it was an outside presentation. The reason I'm using it as an example because it was an outside presentation by somebody who was an expert.
Mm.
And it got away from the teacher being the expert, and this person is a real expert. And so if you had somebody that was farm oriented, knew a lot about farms, and could excite the kids, even bringing in. I remember doing this. I was teaching, and when I was teaching, had nothing to do with agriculture really. But I had over at the old Ridge Park the high school. I had on the side of the window, I brought in some trays, and I put in seeds, like corn seeds, pumpkin seeds, stuff that they could watch grow between the time of the spring when it, was applicable till the end of school. And it just was a conversation piece, much as anything else. And that maybe, get somebody involved in doing that in earth sciences, or they teach botany and things, mostly first and second year in high school. But why not in an elementary school? My grandson, who's 7, if you look up lettuce grow, lettuce spelled like lettuce grow, it's a tower that you put seeds into, and it's hydroponic. So I got one of them for him, and he lives in Los Angeles, and the lettuce grow is on the porch. And every time I'm there, Gramps, look at what's growing now. And there's some strawberries in
exciting.
there, and there's lettuce and there's spinach. But he doesn't. He only comes to the farm once or twice a year, so he wants to. Kids want to. They're curious.
Yeah.
They want to see stuff grow. They want to know that sort of thing. And I think they're probably Tremblay would be interested in doing something like that. I'm sure there's all kinds of.
Yeah.
ways, but I think that's part of something that.
So my take, I know that the high school, there's a number of different gardens that they've had going.
Yeah.
The guy who was the food service person that started all of that. Hello. Um,
This is my husband Nate.
I was wondering about that. Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
What? No, you didn't bring any for the rest of us?
No.
What kind of a deal is that?
I'm only married to her.
There you go.
Oh, he was at a different meeting.
Yeah, the
Okay.
cultural council thing upstairs.
So the guy who started with the food service committee, he retired in November. So I don't know I'm kind of curious what they're going to do with it. My plan was to talk to, I think it's Beverly Hugo.
She's in school committee.
Yeah, who's on school committee, and she's the chairman for the subcommittee that's climate change, sustainability, and environmental things. So that was my next contact point was to see what they're doing, see if she knew what was happening with
Yeah.
the gardens, if the new guy's gonna do something, continue it or not. Um, so that's one piece with the high school, and then Keefe Tech, which the community garden group is talking to. They have a Future Farmers of America program and a landscape management, so they're all teaching skills, getting experience,
Yeah.
and finding them job opportunities, that sort of thing. So it sounded like a really
My
interesting.
school had a landscaping. We've got a career and technology department, and they had landscaping. And then the person who taught that left, so I'm not sure where they are with that. But we also have a farm to table class teacher
Oh, cool.
in the high school, and then in my program, I do a food garden every year, which
Yeah.
is looking great thanks to a person in Framingham who gave me a bunch of plants
Oh,
to put in
excellent.
because everything we grew pretty much killed it all in April.
Oh,
Yeah, it happens.
okay.
But so now they're hatching more duck eggs. And that'll be fun. But we're gonna be doing the mass farm to school institute in the fall to learn how to
That's
like
cute.
develop more of a farming program and agriculture program at our school. I work at the learning center, and it's a nice small group where you can try a lot of things. There's a lot of flexibility. There's red tape, but there's not a ton of red tape like you'd have with the public school.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to try new things and to get the kids involved because
Right.
they also don't know where their food comes from. And I've had students who have never had vegetables, like a fresh vegetable before. And that was what really got me started doing gardening in school, was because kids that would not eat fruit that didn't come out of like a can or a container, won't eat fresh vegetables. I've got students right now who are like, I don't like tomatoes, I'm not going to eat them. And I'm like, we've got 20 kinds of tomatoes, you're going to like one of them. You're going to try them all, you're going to like one of them. They taste completely different when you grow them at home.
Yeah, warm off the vine.
Completely different. We did jelly melons last year, little horned fruit.
Oh,
They never turned yellow, but the kids cut them up and ate them anyway, and said they still tasted pretty good. So we're doing it again. I
okay.
mean,
How old is
That's
the
progress.
I teach mostly high school this year. I'm doing high school and middle school, but we do 8 to 22. So we got a range of kids, and I've got little kids that are not even in my classes that come over and want to see what's going on and help
sure.
out with the garden. They want to help out with the ducks. They're crazy excited that we're doing more ducks. So, yeah.
Excellent.
And how long does it take for them to hatch? And I've got like a chart with every 2 days what the development looks like.
They got math skills
yeah.
and science skills and reading
It's
skills.
got a little bit of everything. Write some stories. What do you see? What do you observe? What's
Right,
happening?
right.
Tell me about, like, what do you know? What have you learned?
I am sure that the lower grades in the public schools have something going on as well. So if I can kind of niggle into the school committees and find who the people are there and see what their process is and coordination. If there's something that connects us, where we connect with farms, we connect with gardens or other programs that we can kind of keep together with the community, would be good. So definitely work on school stuff. Farmers market, animals. How should we proceed? Other than making contact with Alex, what should we do about us reviewing the keeping of animals?
I can send that stuff out to you guys if you want to take a look at it. Because, I mean, it's very...
I think you sent it before, or
I might have, yeah.
yeah, last time.
It's daunting, and it seems like it's changed a little bit, so I have to, like, print it out and, like, kind of look to see where the changes are, because they don't
You know
really
what I
tell
think
you.
might be a better approach? Is to go to the Board of Health itself instead of Alex. Have a meeting with, a joint meeting with the Board of Health and this committee, and explain why it is that we are concerned about them doing things without asking that seem to come in this purview, and I'm sure they'll all declare ignorance and they didn't know. So just, once you put groups like that on notice, they won't do it again. They'll come back around.
I think we have to, before going there, I think we kind of have to have ourselves together. Like, here's what we're here's what we're concerned about, and
Yeah.
and what we'd like to do. Here's how we can help you with this, because we know this maybe is a problem for you guys, and we can offer support for that.
Yeah.
So,
And now there's the new state law that boards of health, however you pronounce it, say it, have to communicate with agricultural committees in a city or in town, if you have an
Right.
agriculture committee, about changes that will affect agriculture in
That's
Framingham.
why
Okay.
Yeah.
I was annoyed because I knew that law was there and they ignored it. They knew it was there and they ignored it.
Yeah. They had a presentation with Mass Association of Boards of Health in February 2021. And then, I mean, we already benefit out COVID. A lot of things got dropped.
No, that
But-
excuse is gone.
I know.
Are we still interested in, well, I'm sure we're still interested in just how to go about it, setting up something with this council, since we met with the
Yes.
mayor?
Yeah, I was
The
just trying to
council
give
may
them
be the
some time
next-
because they're doing all the financial stuff and
Okay,
they're busy enough.
right, that, and
That
then,
should be done
with that
soon.
pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think we could ask
Or
them to
end
put
of June?
yourself on the agenda, yeah.
so if
Yeah.
we get on the agenda for August, September or something,
Probably not August, maybe July.
July, okay. if
Because
that's-
August, I don't think they really meet.
They'll,
okay,
they'll
I-
entertain a meeting, yeah.
Just like to say hello and here, this is who we are. This is what we want to do.
Right,
Like 5 minutes, not even.
okay. You wanna
Again,
initiate,
council meetings, they have public forum.
I'm
I
sorry?
mean, we could do that too. We could just show up for public
Yeah, I would-
participation, but
I'd ask for some time.
yeah,
Okay.
but I can do that. I
You
can.
would- The other thing that was interesting in the Metro West Collaborative, they sent out a document, and I guess Daniel's Table kind of had a proposal about all kinds of things with intake and food and stuff, but there was one bit in there where they was looking at a farmer's market and looking at 2 venues. I don't know which ones, but that sounded interesting. So I can kind of go back to them and see if I can figure out.
You mean for them to have a farmer's market? Or to
I'm not sure exactly how it was going to go, but it was just mentioned that they're looking at, if they have farmer's market, they're looking for equity across the market. So maybe there's some of it that kind of is full price, but if there's financial issues, then it's a different price. And if you're financially unstable, maybe you've got free food until you're back to being stable. So I'm not sure what their model looks like, but
They call their once they getting food farmers market.
I'm sorry.
Now the COVID is over, they call their Wednesdays when they have people come get their food. They are calling it farmers market.
Ah, okay. So I wasn't sure quite if it was that. Then the document also said they're looking at 2 other places. So I didn't know if it was food pickup places that they're doing it, or if they're actually doing something different. It talked about kind of have a hybrid market where the for-profit is kind of funding the not-profit part or the donation part. So
Yeah, that's cool.
so I'll reach out and figure out exactly what they're talking about to see how it fits with everything else. No, I don't know where they are. Unless they got lots of questions over at Parks and Rec.
Is there a phone number to call?
I can,
You got Wiseman's number? I've got Wiseman's number.
yeah, I was gonna text Mary. She's the one who had the slides. And we could go through their slides for them. Which are kind of interesting.
Stearns Farm is only 2 acres.
I think so.
It's next to my house.
Yeah.
Between that and the other field I just cut, there's a straw field that Hanson has. It's about maybe 3.
On the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
They had,
awesome.
well, there was a deal when Kathy Huggins was running it. I let her, we fixed it so that the field at the other end of the Callahan Park, we call it Ugley's, where the little white house is, and there's 7 acres behind there where Tommy plants his corn. Well, I gave that to her to use, and then the deer got so bad that so then I gave her Plimpton's field down on Belknap Road to use, and then there's a nutcake neighbor who lives down there she put electric fence around it to keep the deer out, and so some kid walked up and touched it and got shocked, and so this guy made a big to-do out of it and then drove him out.
So that's like empty now, right?
Huh?
Plimpton Field.
Yeah. It was a great
It's like a
place.
nice little pasture. I always stare at it when I'm driving by. Like,
Oh,
Why isn't there
I
anything
just
there?
cut the hay there now.
Wow.
But it was a great. I grew corn there for a long time, and then Kathy had it for 3 or 4 years. Grew great. She even had. When you look on the side, there's a water hydrant there. She had installed to water all the stuff.
Nice.
There was a great venue. And that idiot next door. Ruined it.
Well, Stearns, I didn't realize. I thought Stearns was a lot bigger because I've got 2 acres. That makes me feel a lot more like, hey, I can do stuff. I
You
don't
did your own
have.
thing, yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
and-
have
and
like the sun. I've got too much shade, so I can't. But that's really cool.
Yeah, no, I think that's
Junior farmer.
Junior farmer, budding farmer, quarter-time farmer. I'm trying. We've got one of those. We've got like the raised beds, and I put some stuff in the ground, and we've got a bunch of fruit and fruit trees, and we've got one of those tower gardens, the indoor hydroponics, like the really big one. That I told my husband, like, great, you want to do that? Great, I'm not helping.
cycle duck water through it or
It does,
something?
and
Oh,
it does it all.
use
There's a
duck water?
pump.
it's easy.
No, we didn't put duck water in that one. It's in the house. That would smell horrible.
Oh, okay. Not
But
house, no.
the duck water goes into the garden,
Yes.
and
okay.
the fertilizer,
Okay,
the stuff
yeah,
from the
yeah.
ducks, all goes into the garden. I brought to the garden at school, put it all in it before I put soil on top,
Great.
and it's been great. But the one in the house, that takes up a lot of space. But it's really cool. It's very fascinating.
What did you get it by window?
Yeah, but it came with these huge lights.
Like the lights they use to grow marijuana, those big bright things.
Probably
Yeah,
they're
I
pretty
would
damn
think so,
bright.
yeah.
I mean, they are
Yeah.
very bright.
Probably
It's
good
on a
for any kind
timer,
of
so it
plants.
shuts off at like around 10 and then turns back on around 6. So it's not like it. If from the driveway or
Ugh.
from the street, I think you can definitely see it because you can't really see our house, but I'm pretty sure you can see the light.
Yeah.
It's very bright. But he put in all these seeds and it grew all this kale and spinach and lettuce and
Oh wow.
arugula and some other stuff we're not even sure of.
You should have a table at the farmer's market. at
We
the
should,
farm,
but-
sell all that stuff.
We're not there yet. Maybe someday.
I sent Mary a text. I don't know. What her deal is. I would guess that they had questions. I don't know what else was on Parks and Rec's agenda. We could go through their slides or not. What do you think?
We could preview.
Preview. So First United Methodist Church has, community garden on Brook Street.
Where on Brook Street is it?
Brook Street and Water Street.
Oh, in the Methodist Church.
Yeah, Methodist Church.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's right on there. The Methodist Church is kind of back off the street, and it's that corner of
Where water meets brook.
I can't exactly speak for them, but they're interested in, rather than ad hoc community gardens, which there's only a couple, and they've lost the first one at First Parish recently. So they're looking at trying to get a citywide plan for community garden, and we've talked about having everybody being able to have access to community gardens or being able to grow food if they want to. Community-based management. They've been looking at sites around Framingham. They talked about Cushing, and have been talking to Keith, which is why they're also talking to Parks and Rec. Pelham Rec Center, they have, there's another faith, I don't know, it's on another slide, I think. So there's been some raised bed gardens there. Hoops to Homework works part of that program, and they have part of Transition and Open Spirit off with Edwards Church. So part of their thing has been to hire Sophia, I can't remember her last name, but from Tasty Harvest. So she does consulting with gardens and setting up gardens. So she is working with them. Mary Mamat had been their supervisor and guiding thing on how to do it. So now Sophia is going to work with Hoops and Homework and at the Pelham Rec Center for keeping up their gardens. She's been working on putting either hoops or some type of enclosure for them to keep dogs and other pests out of the gardens. Same thing we know about community garden, local food production, family engagement, self-reliance. And there she is.
Hello. Hi.
Mary.
Hi.
Well, back
so nice. Thank you. Hi. Did you get started without us? Did you get to go into the?
We've done, well, we were just kind of like, well, don't know what's happening, so.
Okay.
Is this is agricultural committee, do you know people or not?
No, I'll say,
Hi,
I can
Natasha.
introduce myself.
Steve, come on in.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Okay. Great.
Send you a note.
I'm Mary Memmott. I am representing the Community Gardens Working Group of Transition Framingham. Transition Framingham formed about 10 years ago. It's a citizen volunteer group interested in transitioning Framingham from fossil fuel dependence to local resilience. And we think an important part of local resilience is growing food, right? So we've been working on a Community Gardens Working Group since we've been interested in community gardening for the past 10 years. We've had an active working group since about 2018, but obviously with the pandemic, things slowed down a little bit. Now we're picking up speed, so that's why we're presenting to you.
That's movable if you want to pick it up and do that from someplace else.
Okay, so just again, to give you the big picture, there are some community gardens in Framingham now, but not nearly as many as we think we need. This is the one at the First United Methodist, now Beacon of Hope Church on Waterbrook Street. It's one of the more visible ones, and it's one of their summertime paths. I have my plot somewhere here, but it's not one of those weedy ones. No, it's not that great right now. All right. So what are the goals of community gardening, and why do we think this is so important? Because we really want to extend the benefits to residents citywide. We said there are a few small community gardens in Framingham, but nowhere is there a community garden in every neighborhood. It's not easily accessible to many, and many neighborhoods have none. We'd like to have an institutional structure to support long-term community gardening. Many cities and towns have more of that structure, whether it's a more active nonprofit or through their city or a combination, and we think a combination could work for Framingham. We also want to identify and secure optimal sites. So obviously, not everywhere is good for gardening, but there are a lot of sites that are not being are underused here in Framingham. And we want those gardens to be as self-sustaining as possible with community-based management, so that the gardeners themselves, but along with some leadership, manage their gardens. Again, so you need some management. So these are some young students in 2015 at the Pelham Rec Center. They have a small garden there, and they have for a while. And I volunteered there off and on for the past 5 or 6 years. Here they are doing a little taste test with cucumbers. They decided they were good because they grow them themselves.
I remember bringing out Herb asked me to bring a truckload of dirt and manure over there. And I did, but that's how they got it started. And I remember it because there were some kids who were trying to figure out what the truck was doing in there. And then, because the body of the truck went up so high, I ripped out electric wires and
Oh.
telephone.
Okay, so there's
Worthwhile,
there's
lots
an
of
always
fun.
code as expected. Oh boy. All right, sorry, let me get back into it. Plug in maybe.
Yeah.
Go back to presentation mode. All right, I'll just keep resume slideshow. That's what I want. All right, good. Great. Oh. Your battery is very low. It's
I'm
getting really
working
bad.
on it.
Okay.
Plug it in fast enough.
Plug it in.
Okay, there we go.
Oh. Okay, now it's really mad.
Yeah, so
Uh,
once this stops blinking, it'll go
Okay,
back.
it'll go back. Okay.
If we push the button, it'll go back.
Okay. But I can just speak off the cuff then. Benefits of community gardening. Obviously, it's about raising food, but it's also about raising up the community, right? So people get to know each other, people get exercise outside. And I can speak as a community gardener myself. You benefit hugely from gardening with other people, seeing what they do, learning from their methods, whether they are strange or better. It's definitely a way to grow community. So
I'm working.
okay, I will keep going. And I can also, I think it'd be better if I speak off the cuff. As a community gardener, the garden at the Methodist Church stayed open during the pandemic. And I know for me personally, that was hugely beneficial to be able to get out there, garden, see people in a way that felt, safe, and check on, see how folks were doing, older members of the garden, and just know that everybody was well and be able to share seedlings. It was very, very helpful. And with a more thriving community garden program in Framingham, there'd be more places like that where people can connect around growing food. We definitely have some elderly members at that garden that we all look out for, and it's just, it's nice to have that community feel. And then also we donate produce to food pantries together.
Let's wait and see if she can get this back.
There we go. I knew it just in time. Okay. So I said strengthen self-reliance, family engagement, social interaction. I think that can't be underrated. Outdoor recreation, exercise. You're hauling in the manure if you don't have a truck.
Linda,
Yay! Healthy food, neighborhood cohesion. I know again from the one in the Methodist church, because it is a really visible spot. The dog walkers, the neighbors who come by know that you're there. Chit chat. Maybe let the dog go. You tell them take the dog back. But it provides a way to get to know each other. And open space diversification. Not everything needs to be lawns and ball fields, right? We need other ways to use our open space. And there's a perfect example. These are kids at the Pelham Rec Center Garden in 2021 at their new rec center where they have a new raised bed. Transition Framingham helped build. And they're trying out some carrots straight out of the ground. They look a little suspicious of it, but they're enjoying them. That might be okay. But again, you can see that they were setting up for an event, and the garden's there. It's a focal point, and it's a place for people.
As an aside, we were just talking before you came about how some children react to food that is fresh. If it doesn't come out of a can, they don't trust it. They don't want it.
They're not sure. They're not exactly sure, right? But then there's also the peer pressure. If you'll eat it, I'll eat it. So, right. So sometimes you want to try. All right. So what makes an optimal community garden site? You do need this long-term commitment by the owner, and definitely, if you don't have a long-term commitment, you don't want to put in the effort. Sunlight, super important. Sometimes people don't think ahead about that. Are you making sure the trees aren't going to overgrow later in a few years? Is the soil appropriate? Does it contain toxic chemicals? Is it well drained? Is there water? Right? You don't want to set up somewhere where you can't get water. Is it accessible by truck, or are you going to hit the wires? And then for the people, is it a pleasant location for spending a few hours? If it's right next to a busy road, maybe not. Is it near to residents who are looking for somewhere to garden? And most people are going to end up driving. So do you have sufficient parking so people can pull in and bring in their equipment or whatever they want to use for gardening that day? So again, we're looking for a suitable site. We'd have to take some data, right? So this is a child counting the cherry tomato harvest and just doing some math. We're going to have to count things. Oops, sorry. All right, how do I go back?
The left arrow, left and right arrows down at the bottom here.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah, those kind of. Yep, there you go.
Thank you. All right, so our proposed institutional structure. We're proposing that there be a public-private partnership or collaboration, either with residents and neighborhood associations. On the way in, we had a very productive conversation with someone from the Coburn.
Supatrini.
Susan Petrini from the Coburn Tripoli Neighborhood Association, which is very interested in community gardening. So
At Bates Park.
at Bates Park, right? So we already have one, but there's other organizations in town, nonprofit organizations. I would say things like Hoops and Homework and Pelham have already shown interest. Churches, city boards, and departments. This is why we're here with you. Things like Parks and Recreation, Community and Economic Development, the Housing Authority, which already has at least one community garden on their properties, the Agriculture Advisory Committee, Sustainability Committee, School Department, and Keep Tech, which we'll talk about in a minute, and area businesses. Again, this is the garden that I'm at. They do a lot of food pantry donations, and then last summer I had some high school students come down, get some community service hours with some heavy-duty weeding. So good experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my house.
Weeding
Yeah.
builds character.
It does. It does. That's right. That's right. Okay.
I say that from experience.
That's right. So what is the current community garden scene in Framingham? It's not like there are no community gardens. There are some. But unfortunately, the one at First Parish recently had to close. They sold the property. The one that I garden at, Beacon of Hope United Methodist, is active, but it's, you know, it's a little slice. It's about 20 plots. It's very accessible to that neighborhood, but Framingham is much bigger. The Musterfield has a relatively new one for their residents, Framingham Housing Authority. Again, that's mostly for their residents. There is one on Pratt Street that I think, you know, the Ag Committee was very active in developing. It's definitely being used, but it has some issues with shade, and, you know, it's really mostly accessible by that neighborhood, right? There is one on Merchant Street near the Mass Department of Corrections. Bethany Place has one for their residents, and like I said, some of these after-school programs have smaller ones for their residents. But if you were a new resident of Framingham, you moved into Framingham, it would not be obvious that there are any community gardens. There's not a lot of structure to it. It's not easy to find, you know, how to get a plot, or even if there are plots available. And neighboring towns have really, you know, got their community garden game going. It's much more easy for people to get involved in this than here. So I do want to point out, so there's definitely a lag. So for the past 10 years, actually this will be our 11th year, Transition Framingham has run a vegetable garden tour. So this is us in summer 2015, making our way through the Pratt Street Community Garden. I think Larry's in the back in the blue, and I'm up front in the hat. So that's how we built this knowledge, is by going out and meeting people in their gardens. And Larry, for example, is going to garden at Pratt Street this year. So we're learning on the ground what's really happening. And there is community garden activity and interest, but not always the space or the support. So we do think there should be more sites, right? There's definitely possibilities in existing parkland, including the smaller parks in the neighborhoods. The centrally located parks like Cushing, schools have potential land. The high school already has a pretty big garden. It's not for the community, though. They use it for their food services. There could be other underutilized city properties or tax title properties. The Housing Authority owns a lot of land. Again, they already have one, but maybe there's space for more. And we don't know, but there could be other nonprofit institutions. But we do think there's a lot of parkland that is what has a lot of potential for community gardens.
Can I just?
Yeah, go ahead.
insert something? I mean, in talking to other communities that have community gardens, it's definitely a build it and they will come phenomenon. So once you create the opportunity, you end up having long lists of people who are waiting for garden plots. The demand invariably exceeds the supply, and I think that would be true.
I think there's been some misunderstanding sometimes for maybe Pratt Street might look like some of the plots aren't used, but there's not a lot of knowledge in the city that those plots are even available. And the same happens at the Methodist Church. Sometimes there are plots that are undersubscribed, but that as a group we don't really advertise that they're available. People don't know that they're there. So things are
shading
like Pratt Street, how would you go about getting a plot?
You pulled it off. Larry pulled it off. It took some effort.
I just moved to down into Cushing Park on the far end, and I was looking to place the garden, and somehow I found out that Jose Ferreira is the coordinator of it. And I emailed him, called him, and he said, just go down and pick a plot.
Oh.
And that's what I did.
That's cool.
I looked at the size of the other plots there, and I figured, well, if they built from that size, I can too. I staked out a plot, and I got some chicken wire and posts and put a little fencing around it, and you know, I'm just starting to garden.
Nice.
And there's still space there. It is filling up a bit, but there's still space there. But you know, it's kind of loosey-goosey.
Well, that's the point. There's a lot of stuff where there's no real, it's, you know, come see, come sa. To just go back to Merchant Street for a second, I got asked to go over and plow that, and then I went over with a rototiller last week. There is a lot of land there that if it were properly drained, if there was some way of having perhaps a request given to the CPC for some funds to drain it. But there are 61 families that are using those plots over there now. And there's a waiting list apparently.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because it's not an easy place to garden.
I couldn't find
The way it is now, I had a 4-wheel drive tractor that got stuck and then we had to get a tow truck to pull me out. Otherwise, I would have done more of it, but it's very badly drained and could be, if it were drained out, much more usable.
It's right in the middle of a wetland.
Yeah, but you could, I saw the way they tried to drain it, but they only go so far, so the water then backs up
Yeah,
onto
yeah.
the stuff, and you told me it was too wet to plow. I was gonna prove you not to be correct.
Well, it's a very interesting site, because I imagine when there was a farm associated with the prison,
Oh, yeah, it was a big
that
farm there.
probably later in the season, when it dried out, you might grow hay there or something, but early in the season,
Well-
it's just mucky.
It used to be, but the problem is that it used to be tiled, and it did drain. There's, on the other side of that
Oh,
brush pile,
Mm.
there's a little stream, and it should be drained. They should just put in some tiles or just some drain lines in to drain it, so that, you know, a lot more people could use it. It wouldn't be difficult to do at all.
right.
Wow.
That's very interesting.
Is there a coordinator for it?
A guy whose name I couldn't pronounce if I had to, but probably related to Jose Ferrer.
Okay.
So the woman who coordinated Pratt used to coordinate both. So it's possible
Yes.
Jose's
Yeah,
coordinating
I met a
both.
man who couldn't speak. John Stefanini is sort of their godfather, and there's a guy who was there when I was there, trying to ask me questions, and I haven't had any Spanish since I was in high school, so I'm not really great at translating, but I managed to understand what he was saying and did what he asked me to do. But there's mostly a Hispanic crowd there.
And they grow a lot of corn.
They grow lots of corn.
Yeah.
And it's Brazilian corn. What they call Brazilian corn.
That's fantastic.
Interesting.
That's fantastic. All right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Again, there are really cool things happening around community gardening in Framingham, but we do feel like there should be more and more organized.
Well, there's land, but like that
Right.
land, there's land around.
Yeah.
A
Exactly.
lot.
Just to show you again something that's already happening, this is the high school, the courtyard, where they grow a lot of tomatoes apparently for their stuff. But it's hard to tell. That's not a great photo, but they actually produce a lot of tomatoes for their tomato sauce.
Do they have a class that's doing? Who's actually
So
doing it?
it was, I don't know. So this was a few years ago, but it's food service. Brendan Ryan.
Well, that's what you said for the cooking.
Yeah, was doing a lot, and then he would hire a couple high school kids every summer to take care of it. But I assume it's still going on. But there's a lot of things happening, each in their separate areas. All right, so this is where we think there needs to be some garden management, like you said. Again, if you're going to have a garden, people need to know it's there, right? And clearly, the word of mouth is working for a lot of communities. But can you promote, assign, and track the plots? So Larry goes and set up some plot, but maybe that was someone else's. You make sure that you're not stepping on each
First
other.
come, first
Yeah,
served.
Okay, well, it's like the law of the jungle, I guess. Maintain the waiting list. Who's going to make sure the garden is prepared and sort of put to bed properly in the fall? Who oversees the garden activity? If there's water available, who makes sure that you attend to leaks or things that can go wrong? If the garden soil needs improvement, who's going to be involved with that? Where do you compost the garden waste? What are you doing with that? And if there are fees, how do you collect and manage the fees, right? So, because the irrigation isn't free, building these plots is not always cheap. So here's some kids doing garden button up at Pelham in 2021, getting a little distracted as they do, trying to clean up the garden for us. So what Transition Framingham wants to do is formally engage partners. So we're really looking for the Agriculture Committee to be a partner in community gardening and just go on the record saying that you see this as part of your purview. We are also very interested in doing an independent garden feasibility study. So CPA funding will be coming up. We would really like to write a grant to have a feasibility study for the city about where are the needs, where are the opportunities, and how could this work in a more organized way so that if someone moves to Framingham, they can find a community garden and they can have the support to get that gardening going. And what are the sites? What else is out there? What needs to happen down at Merchant Road to make it more accessible? Or are there other parks? We just talked to someone, like I said, from the Coburn Tripoli neighborhood is interested in Bates Park. is that really a suitable site? Where are the other parks that might be hiding pockets that could work? What neighborhood associations could be sponsors, right? What models do other cities and towns use? Worcester has a really thriving community garden program. Others, Natick is building theirs. Like, what's happening in other cities in Massachusetts?
Westford has a terrific
Westford
one.
has
Wayland has a great
Wayland
one.
has
Yeah.
one. So, there's models out there. We wouldn't have to build it from scratch. And we need to make one that fits Framingham, like you said, like multilingual, multicultural, something that works for our community. And how do other communities fund it, right? So is it just, do people just show up until, or is it part of some city department, or how does that actually happen? And we would love to engage Parks and Rec. This is from Parks and Rec, and the Agriculture Committee in community gardening. We just presented to Parks and Rec. We have a very hot proposal from Keefe Tech. They would love to do some gardening at Cushing, but that is Parks and Rec property, so they have to get their permission to do that. So it's not really
Was Parks and Rec receptive or to your?
I would say
Lukewarm.
very lukewarm. Yes, lukewarm.
Because we're giving them more things to do, or expanding their.
You're reading the tea leaves very well.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, well, I can
But,
see.
But we said that they would
That
talk about it.
department needs new leadership.
But, from the fact that Keefe is so enthusiastic
Yes.
about wanting an opportunity to have a site,
Right.
and we found a site right behind their building, so they can build curriculum around it for their students, is fabulous. And we feel like it's a natural for the city to support. So if you have any ideas for how we can make that happen, that's great. I mean, Larry, why don't you talk about your experience?
Right.
Well, I have. I ran the community garden at First Parish at the head of the green there for 7 years.
Where was the garden?
It was at on the property at 110 Edgell, next to the church, but in the back.
Behind it.
We had 4 acres that went straight back into the wetlands, and the garden was in behind really the
I
110.
didn't even know it was there.
Yeah, and but we took vegetables to shelters, and we ran it for 7 years. It was very successful, but we had to shut down because we had to sell the property. But I knew that Keefe Tech had a horticulture and landscape management program, and with transition, we were looking at some good places to build community gardens, and we found that the property right in back of their rear parking lot, next to where Parks and Rec has a little tree farm there, is beautiful property. And so I contacted Doug Paul, who's the coordinator of their program, and he was all excited about it. He'd love to get his kids involved in it, and having it right out their back door, the kid that's right there, and they would be there to work on it. And they've made a pretty major commitment. They would maintain it, help us design it, help us construct it, test it, monitor it. He'd have his kids working there in the summer. It just seemed like kind of a no-brainer, but maybe it wasn't.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a little bit of my involvement.
And Larry lives at Cushing. So
I live in one of
he-
the cottages. With my wife having problems, we moved there, and so I'm just about half mile away.
Yeah.
And I would work with Doug Paul, and we manage it carefully and make sure it was a real demonstration project that would.
So this is where noise comes in. There's more noise that's needed because, and I wasn't being facetious when I said there needs to be change in leadership at the Parks Department. There's always an answer, which is basically no, for whatever requests are made. But you get down to Cushing, I remember when they tore all of the buildings, maybe a year or two, they tore everything down. And that was when John King was the chairman of the Board of Selectmen at the time.
he tried, there was one year that he had me, the fields were just let go, so I went down and mowed the hay on them. And I said, there's all this open space, nobody's doing anything with it. Why don't we put some gardens in? And that was the first and last suggestion. It went in and out of somebody's ears, and that was it. But it's pretty outrageous that that land is not being used for. I mean, it's just people
Mowed.
look at it.
Right.
Yeah,
And
mowed.
they pay contractors to mow.
Yeah.
Water,
Yes.
fertilize it, I guess.
Yeah, it really is.
But that's when the noise comes in.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
go to the city council, and you meet with the mayor and make some noise. You're not going to get anywhere going to the Parks Department. You go to the city council, you go to the mayor.
I think that's the next step.
Yeah.
We were just talking about, we're gonna have to work around it,
But meanwhile, we think this feasibility study is a good idea because it will identify good sites, the optimal sites. And unfortunately, we're afraid that what would happen would be the sites that aren't good for anything else are going to be the sites that are given for gardening, as opposed to looking at what are the physical requirements for gardens, and that's where the garden should go.
I think you have to do that maybe on an individualized basis. If it's rocky, yeah. If it's poor soil, we can do something about that. I wouldn't walk away from land that was tillable, not in poor soil, because there's all kinds of stuff that we can put on
We
the
agree,
land.
we agree.
Is part of this, so it's building a network of community gardens throughout the city, and so the city's got a whole city plan for community gardens. And is it, keeping up with Merchant Street and Pratt Street and kind of bringing those up to, not letting them go and saying, oh, these are no good, we
No,
want
no,
a
no.
new one.
Mhm.
No,
Okay.
no, not,
Yes,
I mean,
not at
people-
all.
That's an important point to make
No.
to council.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
absolutely, people are using these places, and,
Right.
In
but
spite of them.
in spite of the
Right,
difficulties, I think if
exactly,
they were
yeah.
better, they would be,
Absolutely.
Right, so there's some,
Jam
maybe
the
things that
gardens.
can be done to them
Right.
to make, draining them or
right,
shade management or something.
right.
Okay,
I mean,
that's
not,
fine.
I
No,
don't
I've-
think anyone,
I've had-
and none of us want, I mean, we're broken up about
But
losing
see,
this
what's
first
good about
growth
your group
Yeah.
and maybe this group and, the community preservation group is there's strength in numbers. And I go back again to noise. You need to make some noise and people will pay attention, and then they'll want not to hear the noise, so they'll do something.
So we have an ask for you, and that's that Transition Framingham is going to take the lead probably in a proposal as part of this first CPA round to do a feasibility study. And
I chuckle only because Steve and I are on that committee. I
we're
only
on the
chuckle
committee.
because there will be a line that forms pretty soon. The more I hear, and you probably have your ear more to the ground than I do, people who want to get in on the action, and it doesn't necessarily have to be expensive, but you need to get your plans ready now
Right.
for the application
Right,
period,
and
which starts.
we understand in terms of the criteria that the engagement of city departments and committees is very important to evaluation. And it seems like from what we heard from you, that the Ag Advisory Committee is interested in promoting community agriculture anyway. So I guess our ask is that when the proposal gets developed, can we formally include the committee as a supporter?
We'd probably have to vote on that,
Wait,
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, vote now, or do you want to, all 4 or 5 of us?
I mean, I'm on board. Anything that supports community agriculture.
Okay, we're good.
I'll make a motion that we grab onto the coattails. Community. It makes just a lot of sense.
And you're going to become a resource too to the
Yeah.
process.
I think you have our support.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Thank you very much.
That's
Right,
great,
yeah.
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 I have a new person question, since I'm new, I'm Diane, just new to all of this. The community gardens, are these there for just regular people who are looking to garden,
Well,
and they wouldn't be selling their things, because the things, I really love this, so I'm thinking, I always tend to think way down the line, which is too far down the line, of, people who get involved, like students learning how to become chefs, I mean,
Yeah.
or contact chefs and contact restaurants and entrepreneur things, so these community gardens aren't really in line with that, right?
You're thinking farm to table in some
Okay,
fashion?
probably, yeah.
I think, I mean, we're trying to promote this initially, just thinking about the CPA. It's open space, diversification, it's better than just lawns, and it's outdoor recreation for gardeners.
I think you're way ahead of the curve. Probably somebody will think about that, whether it needs to be discussed now or not, but they're,
Yeah.
Probably way too
maybe
early for
waiting.
that.
And most of the people that use them now, not only here, but what I see, even in California, I mean, they give the food away. They try to come up with, it's more difficult in the part of California where I spend time. There's no land, but yet they find land. And the one thing that also is, what I'm thinking about now is what they've done in some of the places in California. They put, one of the buildings, actually, when I was out there last week, my daughter was showing me a story about, on top of a building on Wilshire, it's about an acre, and they brought up, it's an 11-story building, they brought up about 4 tons of dirt, and instead of just having a roof, they have a garden on the roof.
Green
Yeah.
roofs.
And I think that's gonna happen, I think there's gonna be a lot of that. And I was thinking about these new apartments in Framingham, somebody ought to approach them and say, okay, we wanna put a garden up on the roof, and I'm sure a lot of people that are in these buildings would go for it. And why not? You're looking for places to do it, that's a good place to do
Yeah,
it.
definitely, yeah.
Did your question get answered? Yes, somewhat, yes, because I realize sometimes I tend to travel down the road a little bit too far, but I think even in the schools, and that's separate than this.
Well, and I think it's like Larry at First Parish, he likes to garden, but the food was donated to a
Yeah.
food pantry.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be
three quarters
great.
of our food went to food pantries, yeah.
Some of that with
The Methodist Church donates a lot of their food as well. But what people do with their individual plots in a true community garden is up to them. So if they were a chef and they wanted to use it for their restaurant or sell it to a restaurant, I mean,
Or give
they
it
would have
away.
been doing it in their backyard if
Right,
they had a backyard or a
right,
front yard.
exactly.
Or something.
And I think again, in Framingham, there are these pockets that are, the Merchant Road is a good example. I mean, someday that prison, I think, is going to shut down, right? So there's going to be a lot of open space. And who knows what, could it be used for an agricultural purpose? Could somewhere like Keep Tech really take it over to make it into more of a working farm? Who knows?
And we've done some initial screening of parks and rec sites.
There's some good ones.
And there are some really good ones, like Victory Park. It's a fabulous site. And in Saxonville, Danforth Park has great areas for gardening that have terrific
It's
sunshine.
pretty close to water too.
Yeah, and close to water too. And the reality is that a lot of the level open sites are under the control of Parks and Recreation. And so it's a policy decision, really, as much as anything else.
Maybe some things you need, like, whether it's Cushing or someplace else, you need that one demonstration project that this works, it's better for the land, it builds community, all the
And
different
the
things it
noise.
does.
We need the noise.
Yeah.
Yes,
Need noise.
Yeah, we're definitely looking for partners in the noise, because this is only, half hour after we finish our presentation at Park and Rec, it's very clear it's gonna need some noise, right?
So,
It's not gonna be an easy, obvious, I have a vegetable garden at my school. One student asked the superintendent and she got it, right? That's unusual at a school, but, this is obviously not gonna be that easy, so.
Well, just plug away at it.
yes, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
thank
you.
you.
Thanks for coming.
We'll
Yeah,
keep
thanks
at
for
it, make some noise.
Yeah,
Let
we're
us
gonna
know
need
what you do.
that's what we'll need your help with, right, with the noise. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Hey,
vote.
what is their secret? I want to know what's in that napkin that's wrapped up in that napkin here.
Not telling you.
Huh?
Wow.
You wanna hit the record off, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's stopped on something.
Okay,
Thank you
very
guys.
much.
Also, thank you all for serving on the
Oh, yeah.
commission. You don't get thanks enough for that. Thank you for serving on the commission. I appreciate it.
So Diane's applied